I'm going to have a go at this inner arch. I've got the car jacked up. You can see there's two axle stands underneath. The one closest is actually supporting the car. The other one is just underneath, so if anything goes wrong, that should give me a little bit of safety. I'm a little bit concerned about how far the rot's actually gone on this inner arch. Now I've got it a bit higher, I can see better. Let me show you. Now, I will say, it doesn't matter how bad this rot is, I'm going to repair it. That's not the worry. So that's the little hole I knew about when I cleaned out the arch. But when you come underneath, a little bit of mud there I missed. It's just, I don't know. I have this horrible feeling I'm going to be replacing a lot of arch. First job is get the flap disc in here, give this a buzz, see what we're left with. Okay, this has surprised me, but in a good way. On this side, I've been clearing out all of the little rust bubbles, and honestly, that's not too bad. There's nothing that really looks like it needs welding here. A bit of rust treatment and some fresh paint. That should be fine, which is good. This side, much the same story. I've uncovered an old repair there, which is perfectly sound. A little bit in the corner I knew about that needs redoing. And again, the blisters, they just go back to fairly good metal. Until you get up to where the hole is, which I knew about, but I haven't seen this for a very long time. I think this is a sock. Yep. Wow. Somebody has stuffed an old sock in the hole in the wheel arch and then fillered over it. Yeah, I've not seen that repair in an extremely long time. And this is just filler. That's okay though, this bit here, that's the inside of the car, and this is the inner arch. So you've got two different skins, so you can't see any of this rust from inside, because it's not inside. There's a fairly hefty hole there that I need to clean up and patch, but so far, the rust I see is the rust there is, so that's helping enormously, because I was a bit worried it was going to be a bit excessive. Also, this plastic bag on here, this filler neck is actually plastic, so I have no idea why that plastic bag is on there. Amazingly, this has given me no surprises. There's a hole here where the sock was, so that just needs a big patch doing. That's going to be fairly straightforward. There's an old repair down here, which is actually pretty good. I can mostly just leave that alone. What I need to do is cut out this section here, which is outside of where it's been repaired. It's been repaired here, it's been repaired here, and the metal's just gone outside of the repair, so I'll knock these sections back where you can see, and we'll put some fresh metal in. I've also found what's on the filler neck. It's cling film or similar. The angle grinder caught an edge and whipped it off, but it's just cling film. I think that when all this undersealing was done under here, I think they've wrapped that in cling film to mask it off and then just forgot to take it off. Because this is plastic. It's not metal. So, you know, you can hear that's plastic. That's metal. Yeah, I'm going to get as much of that off as I can, which will help it look a bit tidier under here. And yeah, I trimmed the edges. This isn't going to be anywhere near as bad a repair as I was expecting, so that's a bit of a relief. Time to stop for a minute. My grinder battery is flat. That's really my only problem with these cordless grinders, is the batteries do seem to wear out quite fast. Anyway, this is what's come out so far, and honestly, I was really worried that... Come on, camera. I was really concerned that this was going to be much worse, but apart from me tidying up the edges, maybe cutting out a little bit more on this one, it's not that bad. There's a little piece down there, that big piece where the sock was. The bits down there I've not done. The inner arch actually ended up not being as bad as I thought. It only goes that far. So I'm still a good distance away from any sort of petrol-y things, which is a concern. On the other side, this is much better. This is actually really surprisingly solid. You can see the little bits of rust in here, but once I've given them a more thorough clean and some rust treatment, they won't need welding. That's perfectly fine. There's a little bit of filler in here where there's an old repair, but it really is a very tiny amount, and the repair's still solid, so I'm leaving that alone. Pick my battles. Yeah, overall, this, you know, it's bad. I shan't lie about that, but it's not as bad as I was expecting. And the shape of the repairs is actually going to be a lot easier than I was expecting them to be, which is always nice. Right, I'm going to stick this battery on charge and we'll come back and do a bit more in a bit. It's finally starting to look something like. I've got everything back to weldable metal, ready for the next stage, which is just going to be preparing everything. I've not been recording a lot of this because the sparks, I don't want to damage the camera, basically. But that repair looks a lot easier now. It's a big one, but it's not as bad a shape. And you can see a couple of patches down here. I was going to leave all of this alone until I opened up some areas when I was cleaning back. So I've chopped off this section, and you can see it's got a few different layers in there, but this should help me make a new piece to go in there, or possibly even salvage this depending on what's going on with it. We'll see. It's complicated. I did cut the sill open. This has been repaired before. I did know it had some sill work, so that's no great surprise. But I needed to cut this open to get all the cornflakes out of here, so that's now done. But the inner sill doesn't look too terrible. Yeah, you know, it looks okay. Could do with a bit of rust treatment in there, just some surfacey stuff. But overall, not terrible. And now that I've cut this open, it's going to be a bit easier just to do all the various bits and pieces. This is going to be fiddly and annoying. That is going to be one of the most annoying patches there is. This side, none of these bits that were blisters have done anything other than surface rust, so that's fantastic. The awkward thing with here is when I get to about this point, which is just under the fuel filler, I can't seem to get an angle where me and the grinder are happy together. So because I don't want it to punch me in the face, I'm just sort of doing my best. But nothing's gone through into the inside of the car, so I'm happy about that, because that's the bit you see inside the car there, and this is the weather side, the wheel arch itself. What I'm going to do is put some weld-through primer on all of this, just to kind of stabilise it a bit until I'm ready to do the welding, which will probably be tomorrow. I don't think I can do it today. We'll see. Just going to give everything a wipe down with this stuff, and then we'll use some rust treater on it. This is just until I can finish the job properly. I'm going to do it piecemeal. This isn't a permanent thing, this is just to arrest any rust from developing too much further. Once this is all cured, I'll put some weld-through primer on everything, again, just to help keep everything sealed up until I get a chance to do the next stage. I am limited on time, and I only get so much opportunity to be outdoors. So you've seen me use this stuff before, this Hammerite Q-Rust, not sponsored. And all I'm doing with the Q-Rust on here is I'm not curing any of the rust, I'm just arresting the development. I don't want all of this I've cleaned back here to flash over and then give me lots of work to have to clean all that off and start again. Because I'm limited on the time that I have and I'm having to work outdoors, it means I have to take a slightly different approach. If I had a workspace that was out of the elements, I could just strip all of this back, get some nice fresh panels on it, take my time and really do a bang up job. But I have to compromise, as many of us do, so we'll just go for good enough. As long as it's strong and solid, as long as it doesn't have rust in it, that's all that really matters. I know in a few years it's probably going to need some work again. That's the nature of old cars. You can't really get away from that. I am impressed by the sock. That's not a thing I've seen in a repair for quite some time. It's very much of its time, this car. It'll go together fairly quickly though. These jobs, it's quite surprising how quickly you go from a scary bunch of holes to it just suddenly being a car again. The magic of shiny silver paint. This is a zinc rich weld-through primer, and it shows, like in this arch here, it's really not that bad. Once you clean off those blisters, it's actually pretty reasonable, which is nice. Even on the bad side, I did cut out a bit more here. I thought it made more sense to do it as a single patch. I'll tidy this shape up a little bit more when it comes to actually doing the welding. For now that's fine. And you can see, well, the camera can see a bit easier now as well, but it's really not that terrible in there. Just a nice flat coat of colour lets you see what you're doing a bit better. Makes it a bit less scary. It's still a lot of work, I'm not going to dispute that, but it's not as intimidating as it was. It's taken a while. I've finally got all the bits and pieces together to get the welder running, so all the new bits like the welding tips, new bottle of gas, that sort of thing. It's a bit warm today, it's not too bad, so hopefully I can get this done without roasting alive. I've got all the things I needed for the welder finally, so that's now up and running. I've done a bit of a test with it, it seems to be working really well. That's great. First job then is dealing with patches, and normally my hands would be quite dirty at this point because I'd have been grinding and all the rest of it, and I could mark with my finger. Can't do that, so we're going to have to use a pen like a civilized person. All you do, get your tape over the hole. I probably won't be able to do this one-handed. And if your hands are dirty, you can just run your finger along the edge and it leaves a mark. My hands aren't dirty, unfortunately, so instead get a marker pen or a pencil. And if you're using masking tape, it's slightly opaque so you can actually see through it usually. So I'll mark this up and I can transfer that to some metal. These are going to be the 3 patches we deal with. This one's a slightly more awkward shape because it's on a curve and it's a funny shape. So when you're dealing with one like this, where there's a bit more shape to it, run your tape one direction and then the other direction. Just a bit more stable when you take it off. Same with this one up here, I've just put a couple of strips that way just to keep everything together. And the reason I'm using masking tape, the other reason, is you can stick this onto your metal, so then you can just cut out that way. It's a lot easier. All the pieces cut out, and I'm not using new steel on this, partly because I don't have any, but also I've got this wing, and the steel in it's pretty good. So there doesn't seem to be much point, personally, getting some new steel when I've got something that's the same gauge, the same kind of steel, so it's going to weld reliably, and I'm just taking out from areas that aren't rusty, which means, you know, it should last as well as new stuff. A little bit of finagling later, and we've got the patch in, or at least in the hole it needs to live in. I've got to find my magnets. I've managed to misplace them. I'm going to clean up the edges and get that welded in. I'm not going to show you the welding on camera. I'm not sure this camera will be happy about it, but I will show you when everything's all tacked in and I've made a bit more progress on this. Well, it's not pretty. Welding outside rarely is. But grinder and paint makes me the welder I ain't. What I'm happy with is these holes are now all sealed up. And I will of course go back, grind this all down, put some seam sealer on. That's the easy bit. Now I've got to do the arch. That's a lot more difficult and will involve some upside down welding, and this wheel arch is so tiny I'm actually struggling to get in it with the welding helmet on, so this is probably going to be a little bit of a pain in the neck, probably literally. Oh well, I'll let this cool down and then we will do the next stage. It is not the finest welding ever done, but it will be good enough for this job. It's nice and solid, everything's secure. I'm just going to put some seam sealer on. I'm actually having trouble with access. This wheel arch is so tiny, I'm actually having trouble getting in here with tools. But it's progress. I've been looking at the inner arch repair section. I think I've figured that out now. I just need to put some things on charge. Grinder battery is dead at the moment, and I could do with some fuel putting in myself. I've also just quickly tacked that flap back on for the sill. I've probably got to rebuild this section. The piece I put off is a lot of filler. That's going to be difficult. So I'm saving that bit until after I've done the arch, because I think that's going to be a bit of a nightmare. Yeah. It's better than socks.